Howdy folks, Monty here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the Withered Army Training scenario. This scenario is unlocked as part of the Nightfallen story in Suramar, and after completing the introductory quest, shows up as a world quest every 3 days. It's one of the more rewarding bits of endgame content that can be completed while solo, and is the best repeatable source of Nightfallen Reputation, the solid source of loot including a higher than normal chance for Legendaries, and is the source for many hidden artifact appearances. The premise of the scenario is quite simple. You're going to lead a group of Withered, starting with as few as 8 and as many as 20, through the Fallenar ruins, keeping as many alive as possible during the run. As you proceed through the ruins, you're going to be fighting enemies of varying danger levels, including several named bosses, who you'll be tasked with defeating quickly while controlling their abilities to prevent as much AoE as possible. So stuns, interrupts, movement affecting abilities like Death Grip, and anything that's going to push an NPC back is going to be really helpful in this scenario. For each enemy you kill, aside from trivial small enemies, your score is going to increase, and a score of 400 will give you the maximum possible reputation for the run. Over the course of the run, you're going to find many treasure chests. The small ones can be simply opened by you. However, the normal sized chests require you to send 5 of your Withered back to the entrance with it. The larger chests, the glimmering chest, require you to send 10 Withered back. These contain upgrades for your Withered army most of the time. These upgrades are gathered from the chest at the end of the scenario and are permanent. Once you've upgraded your army with these items, your Withered are going to have that upgrade in all subsequent runs through the scenario. So you're going to have a bit of progression every time you run this. You're going to have the upgrades you got from the last time, and you're going to be a little better. You're also going to come across many locked doors over the course of the run. These can be opened by either having a set number of Withered with you, which is 10, having a key that drops from a boss, or having a set number of special Withered with you, in this case, 2 Withered Berserkers. As mentioned, the number of Withered you start with is varied, and it's based on the amount of ancient mana you provide to Thalisra to start the scenario. The minimum mana to turn in is 400. This gives you 8 Withered to start with. If you have your mana upgraded to the max capacity, which is 2,000, you can turn in that amount, 2,000 ancient mana, in order to start with 20 Withered. Over the course of the run, you're also going to see many additional Withered that you can rescue and add to your force. As you'll see in my video, by the time I finished, I actually had 46, even though I started with 20 and lost several along the way. The Withered have 2 modes. They've got a single target DPS mode and an AoE DPS mode that increases their damage dealt by 75%. The 75% increased damage is going to be great. It's going to help you chew through mobs, but it's going to aggro pretty much everything around. So use this carefully. It's important to use on bosses, but make sure you clear the area around them as much as possible prior to switching them over to this DPS mode. That way you don't get a bunch of adds that could decimate your army. The only notable non-boss mob to talk about is the Volatile Wraith. These show up throughout the scenario, and they've got 2 abilities that are both just very, very damaging to your army. The first is Arcane Munitions. It's an interruptible cast that, if allowed to finish, will do massive damage to your army. And finally, they also have Unstable Explosion that they begin to cast at low health. This is not interruptible and is going to require you to burst DPS them down before the cast finishes, as it does massive damage to your army if it goes off. The best way to deal with these is to approach them just like you would a boss. Clear the area around them so you can pull them as a single target, and then put your Withered in DPS mode to just burn them down as quickly as possible. With 20 or more Withered and having their damage upgraded, this isn't a big deal. With a smaller number of Withered without the damage upgrade, you might be wanting to pop consumables on your own end to make sure you're getting them down quickly. As far as bosses go, through the first locked door, which requires 10 Withered to open, you're going to find the Dryad boss Lopelia. She's got 2 notable abilities. The first is Shard Bolt, which is a single target cast that can be interrupted. It's going to be doing damage to you, not your Withered, so not a big deal. The second is Crystalline Shrapnel. This puts an arcane spell effect around her target, which hopefully is going to be you. Make sure you keep your threat on her. Which explodes after a few seconds for moderate AoE damage. So if you get this debuff, just run away from your army. It's going to explode after a few seconds, and if nobody in your army is around you, you're not going to really hurt them. The next boss is the worst. He's the one that people have the most trouble with, and that's Leywalker Dro. Dro stealths in the lower quarters and is going to ambush you and your Withered at some point. The only warning you're going to get is right before he attacks you. Thalisra is going to pop up with a dialogue box and saying, "Oh no, watch out." As such, be very careful how much you pull in these corridors, and make sure you're always ready for Dro. Pull your trash carefully and always be positioned in a spot where if Dro unstealths around you, you're good to go. He's got an ability called Dazzling Blades that's going to cause him to rush towards several of your withered and deal them moderate damage. It's important to note that he's not going to cast this if you only have one withered remaining, so he's never going to wipe you unless he kills you. He can be stunned, so make sure you're using those abilities to your advantage. Use your withered 75% DPS buff to your advantage during the fight. However, make sure you're in a spot where you're not going to aggro the rest of the room. This goes back to earlier. Make sure you're very, very careful about your positioning until you fight Dro, so you're always ready for this fight. If you've not upgraded your Withered Army at all, if this is your first time through, I recommend moving to Dro's room straight away. And on the way there, don't rescue any additional Withered. Kill Dro, and as mentioned, you're going to have at least one survivor, as he's not going to wipe your group. After which you can backtrack and begin to rescue the other Withered to rebuild your army. When you kill him, he drops a key, which unlocks the last half of the ruins, opens up the last several bosses, and the final room that officially ends the scenario. Brood Guardian Fix is a Falderai, which is a spider elf, locked behind a door that requires 10 Wither to open. He's got two abilities, Cleaving Claws, which is interruptible AoE damage, and Brood Expansion, which is non-interruptible, is going to summon adds that you need to tank and kill. Honestly, he's a pushover, especially if you've got 20 or more Withered, especially if you've got that 25% damage buff. By the time you get to his room, you're probably going to have 30 or more if you're doing this right. As with most bosses, just make sure you pull all his trash first, then put your Withered in DPS mode when you pull the boss himself, and your Withered is going to make short work of it. Volatile Wraith Lord is the boss version of the Volatile Race we saw earlier, and he's got literally the same abilities that just do more damage. Approach him with the same tactics. Make sure you're interrupting arcane munitions, and be ready to burst DPS for when he starts casting Unstable Explosion. Just like with Dro, if your DPS is low, if you've got lower number of Withered, and if you haven't upgraded your Withered yet, it's a good idea to use some consumables here, at least some DPS potions. The penultimate boss of the scenario is Furog, the Elf Breaker, and next to Dro, this guy's the worst. He can suck if you've got a small number of Withered when you fight him, but with a large number of Withered, he dies pretty quickly. As always, clear all the trash you can. However, note that there are constantly going to be these small spiders that are running in the room. You're going to need to make sure you get aggro on and kill quickly, otherwise they're going to start damaging your Withered. Small amount of damage, but over time it can stack up. Neither of Furog's abilities can be interrupted traditionally. However, he can be pulled or pushed away using abilities like Death Grip, which interrupts casting when you yank him, and he also can be stunned. His first ability is Grab Withered, which does exactly that. He grabs one of your Withered, he does massive damage to it. The second ability is a large radius AoE called Stomp, which is just going to wipe out your army if he gets it off. So my advice for Furog is to approach him with as many Withered as possible, because they just melt his HP when you put him in DPS mode. And bring along some potions and pop Heroism on this fight. Heroism, Bloodlust, Drums of Rage, Time Warp, that kind of thing. Yeah, if you can do that and just burst this boss down, he's not going to be a problem. And then the final boss is a pushover. He's pronounced Silic, I think. He's a spider who's fairly trivial. The only ability he has is Web Blast, which is going to put webs on the ground and slow you, dealing AoE damage while you're on them. You can avoid those. They can hurt your army, but if you kill the boss quickly, that's not going to be a concern. Once you've cleared the ruins, backtrack through and pick up the chests. You're not going to want to pick up the chests that require 5 or 10 Withered to send back during the run, because that's going to make you less effective, making your army smaller. And you can go through and you can target specific loot, because the loot in these chests is set and you can only pick them up once. So take a look at the map linked in the description of the video and figure out what upgrades you want. Some early upgrades that you should target are the upgrade that reduces the chance for your Withered to run when taking damage, the 25% HP upgrade, the 25% damage upgrade, both of which are unlocked very, very early. And the 2 Withered Berserking Helms, because as you saw, one of the doors requires 2 Withered Berserkers to be able to get access to it. As I mentioned previously, a score of 400 is going to optimize your reputation gains, though aim as high as you can, as you never know if that's going to help your chance for legendary and or hidden artifact appearances. I know as a Blood Death Knight, my hidden artifact appearance is there, so I'm trying to get the highest score I possibly can. So far, my highest score is 602. So that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope this guide was helpful. In the comments section, tell me how you're doing on this scenario. What's your personal best score? What loot have you gotten so far? Hey, share some screenshots. Let me know kind of how you guys are doing. Most importantly, stay tuned on the channel for more World of Warcraft Legion info. And if you haven't yet, hit me with a like, hit me with a sub. Those help the channel out greatly. All that said, thank you guys for watching.